My husband figured that once I'd delivered Noah, I couldn't run anywhere. He snatched my promotion advance, then shoved his father's country town old friend into the house as our live-in nanny. What he doesn't know is that the company he works for belongs to my family. Our nanny is poison. A pot of braised beef from my parents' estate was simmering on the stove, yet she served me day-old green beans. When I asked, she looked affronted. It's not even done yet. That beef has to thaw. You never said you wanted lunch. I stared at her knitted brows and drooping mouth. The sight turned my stomach. Fine. I'm not starving. Call me when it's ready. The woman has a foghorn voice. She barked, so the beans go to waste? That beef won't be ready till tonight, just choke some down. I pressed 2 fingers to the bridge of my nose. Brenda, how many times have I told you I don't eat green beans? She cuddled Noah, pretending to be deaf. I opened my mouth again, and Dorian walked in from work. The second he crossed the threshold, Brenda rushed to fawn over him, dumped Noah in my arms, and scurried to the kitchen. Minutes later she reappeared, cradling a platter of the braised beef, Dorian's portion. Not just the beef, garlic snow peas and scallop vermicelli, his favorites. I mean, come on. I slapped my chopsticks onto the table. Brenda, what exactly is this? She squirmed but stood her ground. What's the problem? Dorian's been at the office all day, he deserves something decent. I nearly laughed in her face. The new mother gets leftover beans, the man gets surf and turf. Let me remind you, I hired you to care for me and Noah. Pull this again and you're gone the same day. My words shut her up, yet defiance still glittered in her eyes. Fine. When her employment contract hits its 30-day mark, I'll show her the front door. Hang around long enough and the nanny starts thinking she's lady of the manor. My temper flared. If she wanted me to starve, I'd do the opposite. I handed Noah back, dragged the Dutch oven to my place, and ate straight from the pot. Dorian's forehead creased. What are you doing? I shot him a glare. He muttered psycho under his breath. Brenda re-emerged, parked Noah in the bassinet, and fished a marrow-rich shank from my pot. Dorian, here, this bone's the best bit. I plucked it from his fingers, spat on it, then spat into the pot for good measure. Dorian hurled his chopsticks down. Scarlet, have you lost your mind? I gave him an icy stare. Brenda clucked her tongue. Shameless, hogging all the meat. I rolled my eyes. None of your damn business. Riley glared, cheeks puffed, then stomped off to change Noah's diaper. I kept my gaze on Dorian, disappointment pooling in my chest. Dorian, did you miss every syllable? Why the silent act? He kicked the table leg, gravy sloshed onto my blouse, leaving a greasy map. Again? Can't you give the drama a rest? I drew a slow breath. She served me leftover beans while she stir-fried your favorites, then scolded me to my face, and you call that trivial? He shrugged. You didn't eat the beans, so what's the big deal? Enough already. He grabbed his jacket. I'm done. Enjoy your stew. The front door slammed. Brenda rocked Noah, chortling under her breath. I side-eyed her, she sniffed and swayed off. The splattered broth on the tabletop had already filmed over, just like my marriage. Sam, slick and nauseating. Dorian and I met in college, smooth sail from dorms to wedding gown. My parents worried his family didn't have 2 dimes to rub together, but they relented when they saw he treated me like glass. After the wedding we both joined the same firm, even co-piloted a flagship project. Because I got pregnant on our honeymoon, Dorian closed the deal solo, and waltzed into a junior manager title. In the delivery suite he squeezed my hand and vowed we'd climb the ladder together once I was back from maternity leave. Stubborn pride made me withhold one fact: the firm on our badges is my birthright. I never wanted him thinking I rode daddy's coattails, or that he's the butt of kept man jokes. Even 8 months pregnant I drafted his proposals, yes, including the pet project that just secured his corner office. Maybe the guilt caught up with him. At 8 p.m. he finally slunk home. He knelt bedside, sheepish. Baby, I was a jerk this afternoon. Your husband's sorry. He produced a crystal bowl. Look, your favorite fruit shop was still open. Bought you cherries. He dangled one between my lips and caught the pit when I spat. I spoke softly. Next time you forget whose side you're on, you and our nanny can both pack your bags. His smile froze a millisecond before he fed me another cherry, but the flicker of rage didn't escape me. That night he slept with his back to me. Next morning he was gone before I woke. Brenda's industrial vacuum jerked me from bed, shrieking across marble we hadn't sealed since the move-in clean. I leaned against the jamb. Brenda, did World War III break out? We own 4 Roombas. She curled her lip. I'm not lazy like some people. Too much comfort shortens a person's life. I stepped over and yanked the plug. Fine, manual tools only. Broom and Swiffer are in the pantry. Knock yourself out. She started to protest. I kept talking. Unless you'd rather not? Afraid you'll live too long? Ignoring her scowl, I headed to the kitchen, spotless, breakfastless. I faced her, stone cold. Where's my breakfast? She shrugged, smug. Contract says 3 meals. Breakfast is cooked and eaten, by Dorian. Wake up earlier next time. I stalked to the study, grabbed the employment contract, and smacked it onto the counter. 3 meals for me. If you chose to serve him, that's charity. I want my plate, now. She pivoted with a huff. Can't. Breakfast's done. Not my problem who swallowed it. I speed-dialed Dorian. It rang twice. He whispered, Babe, I'm in a meeting. I stared at Brenda. Dorian, turn around and buy me breakfast, deliver it. His voice cracked louder. By breakfast? He caught himself, dropped to a hiss. Food's at home, why order in? Brenda hovered, cheeks blotchy. I didn't let up. Your nanny says 1 breakfast a day. You ate mine. Replace it. I knew I was displacing anger, but a little, sorry, honey, plus a DoorDash would have ended it. Instead he muttered, stop making scenes, and hung up. Brenda lowered herself back into the chair, unhurried, and crooned at Noah in my arms. A woman's greatest virtue is knowing her place. If you're living off someone else's dime, make yourself smaller. I listened to the dead line, feeling my own pulse cool with every beep. I looked at her smirk, yanked the front door wide, and said, You're fired. Brenda shot up, flustered. You can't just kick me out like that. After Noah was born I ran myself ragged for you. Maybe I didn't earn medals, but I worked my butt off. You're tossing me for something petty? I was too stunned to know whether to laugh or scream. Petty? Brenda, no medals but I worked. You were paid $12,000 a month, every cent wired on time. Her eyes bulged, then, as if a switch flipped, she flopped to the floor like a slab of dough. Not leaving. Our employment contract says the last day of the month. You can't cut me loose early. I inhaled, counted to 5, and decided cash was cheaper than karma. Fine. Take an extra month's salary and let's part civilly. With Noah still in her reach I didn't trust her tantrum, so I upped the ante. Even after that concession she shook her head. Contract says which day, I stay till which day. My temper snapped. I scooped Noah, marched inside, grabbed her tote, and hurled it onto the porch. She scrambled after it, shrieking, while I slammed the door and turned the deadbolt. I packed the rest of her clutter into garbage bags, then speed-dialed Eleanor. This nanny had arrived with Richard and Eleanor's blessing, some distant village cousin. I'd balked at hiring kin, boundaries blur. Dorian insisted outsiders might pilfer or pinch Noah when no one looked, a known quantity felt safer. I'd caved, but only after forcing a proper 3-month employment contract. Now that I'd axed her, Eleanor deserved a heads up. She bristled, promised to handle fallout. Minutes later a ringtone trilled outside. Brenda wailed into her phone, she treated me like dirt, no respect. Eleanor's voice, steel under silk, cut through. Did you serve Scarlett leftovers and skip her breakfast? Brenda's sobs ebbed but stayed sulky. I slave all day, she fires me over nothing? Eleanor sounded exhausted. Stop deflecting. You breached your duties. Come home tonight, I'll fetch the rest tomorrow. Brenda protested until Eleanor warned that blacklisting would follow any further theatrics. Finally her heels clicked down the driveway, dragging trash bags of pride. That night Dorian and I lay in bed, some sitcom flickering. I mused, funny, while Eleanor was here Brenda played sane. The day Mom left, Jekyll became Hyde. People mutate, motives stay hidden. Dorian nuzzled my neck. Forget her. Focus on me, wife. We were one kiss from shedding pajamas when Noah wailed. So much for romance, parents of newborns rate below houseplants. While I rocked Noah I noticed Dorian chuckling at his phone. Secret girlfriend texting? I teased. His face spasmed, he slammed the screen down. Quit the nonsense. He yanked the quilt and turned away, ending conversation. I figured Brenda was old news and told the agency to send fresh resumes. My maternity leave expired soon. 3 days later the doorbell rang. Richard strode in, Brenda glued to his flank, triumphant. She barged past me, chirping, "Let me take your coat, Richard," while I stood frozen. Richard parked on the sofa, authoritative. "Daughter-in-law, I heard about the kerfuffle. Let's be generous, Brenda stays. She'll help with Noah." Heat scalded my throat. "Sorry, Dad. Dorian and I already booked interviews for tomorrow." Brenda shrieked, "You replaced me the instant I left?" Heartless. I ignored her, eyes on Richard. Notice her volume? Eleanor never shouts at me. The mention of Eleanor twitched Richard's cheek, but he barreled on. Competent nannies are scarce. Brenda's diligent and honest, strangers might harm Noah. The logic wasn't absurd, only the messenger was. Unease curdled into certainty at dinner. I'd refused to rehire, yet Richard refused to leave. My plan, let Dorian arrive so father and son could talk man to man. When I carried the last platter out I caught Brenda perched beside Richard, spoon-feeding him braised beef, eyes gooey with lust. My brain screamed, "No way, our live-in help is hitting on Richard." I picked at food, mind spinning. Was this one-sided flirtation or mutual combustion? When Dorian finally appeared I stayed mute, no proof, only mess. Still, I wouldn't budge on hiring Brenda back. Richard announced he'd sleep over to supervise transition. I tested Dorian later. "Why is Dad so invested in Brenda?" Absorbed in his phone, he shrugged. "They're from the same village, old-timer solidarity." Sure, I thought, more like old flame solidarity. They camped 3 days. My patience thinned, so did theirs. One midnight, throat dry, I nudged Dorian for water. He snored. I tiptoed past the guest room and heard rhythmic creaking, headboard against drywall. Pressing my ear to the door I caught Brenda panting Richard's name. They were screwing under my roof. I've never swallowed insult well. I slipped back, snatched my phone and the spare key, returned, and flung the door wide. Brenda straddled Richard, both naked, tangled like a kinky pretzel, utterly oblivious. I swallowed vomit and hit record, flashes popping. Richard yanked pants over hips, Brenda squealed, yanking the comforter to her chin. Richard came at me bare-chested, trying to snatch my phone, but I darted into the living room. Our racket woke Dorian. When he stepped out and saw his father shirtless, leaving Brenda's room, he didn't look shocked at all. He knew about his father. The realization hit me instantly. Then came the wave of nausea. He knew Brenda was Richard's mistress, yet he kept her under our roof. What was that, helping Daddy stash his pet? I stood on the rug, phone in hand. "Don't any of you come near me. Lay one finger on me and I'm dialing 911 right now, telling them you're running a brothel in my house." While I spoke, my thumbs worked just as fast, backing the video and photos straight to the cloud. Sure enough, Richard and Dorian exchanged a glance, then lunged together and pinned me. Richard snatched the phone and smashed it to the floor. Only after the screen shattered did Dorian let go. Smack. I slapped Dorian so hard his head whipped sideways. He raised his hand in rage. I lifted my chin. "Dorian, you lay that hand on me and we're getting divorced." He hesitated, arm frozen midair. Richard glared, voice low and venomous. "A wife is like dough, beat her and she'll obey." "Dorian, time you taught your woman some manners." I gave a cold laugh. "Teach me what? To cheat with a Lila like you, or to play pimp for Dad like him?" I folded my arms and spat. "Sorry, that sleazy trick isn't in my playbook. Dorian, touch a single hair and tomorrow you're walking out with nothing but the clothes on your back." Richard kept prodding Dorian. "What are you scared of? She's had Noah, where's she gonna run?" I stared at them, numb. So they thought Noah was my shackle, huh? Dorian didn't dare strike me, he just hurled his glass to the floor. In the crash of shattering crystal I remembered something awful and sprinted to the master bedroom. Sure enough, Brenda, who'd gone quiet, was tiptoeing out of our room with Noah in her arms. She was pressing a tiny towel over his nose and mouth. His exposed skin was turning scarlet from lack of air. I ripped Noah away, trembling, and flung the towel aside. Noah let out a wail. Only when I heard that cry did my heart restart, tears cascading, fury roaring. I clutched Noah and slapped Brenda hard. Before she could react, I slapped her again. The 2 men rushed in and yanked me off. Richard traced the red handprints on Brenda's cheek, cooing in pity. I thought I'd vomit. Richard whirled on me, fists clenched. "She was trying to smother your grandson, Are you saying that's okay? Richard froze, glancing back. Brenda, suddenly fragile, shook her head. I was scared Noah would catch a chill, I sneered. Cover his mouth and nose to keep him warm, interesting logic. Brenda denied everything, Richard defended her, and Dorian stood mute. I spun to leave for my parents' estate, but Dorian barred the front door. What do you think you're doing? Richard shouted behind me. Don't let her out. Dorian looked away, refusing to meet my eyes. I stared, incredulous. This is unlawful imprisonment, understand? He stayed silent, body blocking the way. I marched to the kitchen, grabbed a paring knife, and pointed it straight at Dorian. His eyes locked on the blade. Scarlett, don't do anything crazy. Richard, sure I was bluffing, lunged to grab the knife. Without thinking, I slashed. He jerked back, but a long red line still opened along his forearm. You psycho. Dad. Seeing I meant business, Dorian finally stepped aside. As I walked out, he tried one last plea. Scarlett, I love you, please don't leave me. I glanced back and laughed. Divorce? Too easy. Everything he'd gained through me, he'd spit back out, piece by bloody piece. I went home to my parents' estate. Mom couldn't stop crying when she saw me in pajamas and slippers clutching Noah. Even my stoic father's eyes reddened. Since my pregnancy, they'd kept a nursery, a night nurse, and a maternity doula on standby. The instant I arrived, staff whisked Noah away and drew me an herbal medicinal bath. After I recounted how Brenda had tried to suffocate him, Dad slammed the table. That's attempted murder. Mom hugged me, sobbing for her poor daughter. I wiped her tears, voice calm. We don't have evidence, we can't charge Brenda. Dad ground his teeth. Tomorrow I'll fire Dorian. I stopped him. Don't. Mom gaped. Dad looked like he wanted to shake me. Don't tell me you still love him. Love? Yes. I loved the boy who once held my hand so hard it sweated in college. The one who raced back with half a roasted sweet potato because he knew I loved them. The one who stood beside me at debate finals and declared that love equals respect. Somewhere, quietly, that boy had rotted away. I met Dad's gaze. Firing him now means severance pay, he'd walk off clean. I want him dragged out in disgrace. As the saying goes, if you can't keep it, burn it to the ground. At my insistence, Dad kept Dorian on the payroll, but gave him no oxygen. And I, the ghostwriter behind his success, walked away. Left to his own mediocrity, Dorian began to drown, one crisis after another. He called and texted nonstop. I blocked him and focused on healing. Professionals handled everything. Within a month I felt stronger than before. Staring at the light ginseng broth in my bowl, I flashed back to Brenda's old hen soup during my confinement, thick grease floating on top. When I couldn't swallow it, she forced me, scolding me in front of guests for being a finicky mother. I'd told Dorian I didn't want to breastfeed. He'd cradled Noah and pretended not to hear. I'd been an idiot, a porcelain doll raised in velvet, letting them grind me to dust, believing love meant endless sacrifice. To the greedy, sacrifice isn't kindness, it's the trumpet sounding their next charge. 2 months later I strode back into Vance. The staff still thought I was returning from maternity leave. A couple of new moms sighed when they saw me. Look at Scarlett's glow, manager must spoil her rotten. We popped out a kid and turned into zombies. Dorian played the devoted husband, smiling sweetly. I smiled wider, then burned his act to the ground. Oh, please. My confinement was a nightmare. Dorian hired some village cousin who fed me leftovers for a month. My parents swooped in and took Noah and me home. I'm still living at their place. The room froze mid-chew. Dorian's face went green under the pitying stares, but he had to keep smiling. My in-laws just dote on her too much. I ignored him, scooped up the folder, and stood. Obviously. If I'd waited for my husband, Noah would be reincarnated by now. Without waiting to see Dorian's murderous glare, I left with the file in hand. I hadn't come to trade insults, I'd come to kick him off his throne. Dorian seemed truly angry now. He no longer bothered coaxing me home. He even started offloading the worst clients and most toxic receivables onto me. Case in point, today I was here to negotiate with Mr. Yu. Rumor had it Dorian had visited 5 times, each time Mr. Yu listened, then coolly said, "Not good enough." The ordeal had pushed Dorian's hairline back a full 2 centimeters. When he handed the client to me, he'd oozed fake concern, calling it a chance to sharpen your skills. I drew a steady breath and knocked on Mr. Yu's door. Open war or dirty tricks, either way. If I signed this deal, my performance metrics would eclipse Dorian's. A deep, pleasant male voice drifted through the wood. Come in. laptop tucked under my arm, I stepped inside. The man behind the desk was half hidden by his screen, but his frame looked promising. "Mr. Yu, hello, I'm Scarlett." A delighted cry cut me off. I blinked, then saw the familiar face. He shot up, rounded the desk, and closed the distance in 3 strides. My brain turned to mush. "Julian? Is that really you?" Before I knew it, he'd pulled me into a hug. I reflexively hugged back. The moment I felt the hard, unmistakable planes of muscle through his shirt, my cheeks flamed and I let go. I switched to a casual pat on his arm. "So you're the heir?" Julian's grin was pure golden retriever, his body radiating heat beside mine. "Yeah, Scarlett. Can't believe I'm seeing you. After graduation you vanished." A flicker of nostalgia hit me. Right, after the diploma came pregnancy, then Noah, and one by one my friends disappeared like birds startled from a cage. I told him the plain truth. I went off to make Noah. His smile faltered for a heartbeat. I sighed inwardly. Once he knew I already had Noah, the contract might not come so easily. Of course I knew Julian had a crush. He'd been a year below me, and our college debate team was legendary, me the pea shooter blazing rapid-fire arguments, Julian perennially assigned as my opposition, reduced to speechlessness round after round. Eventually he'd trailed after me everywhere, calling Scarlett, Scarlett like a chant, stars in his eyes. But back then my world had narrowed to Dorian. I could stonewall the baby topic, let his old feelings do the signing, but looking into Julian's eyes, I realized I wasn't that despicable. Sure enough, Julian gave a soft "oh" and dropped his gaze. Awkward, but I forced myself to pull out the proposal. "Mr. Yu, I've prepared a new plan." Plop. A tear splashed onto the back of my hand. I jerked my head up. Julian was crying, ugly crying, while hugging me. Why didn't you marry me, Scarlett? You don't even call me little you anymore. Do you hate me?" His tears were a busted fire hydrant. I fumbled for tissues, patting his back like calming a toddler. No, I don't hate you. Little you is awesome, how could I?" He hiccuped, eyes glassy as a retriever caught in the rain. "Then why won't you marry me?" My head throbbed. "Because I'm already married. I have Noah." Stubborn as a mule, he repeated, "You can divorce him and marry me, and your Noah will be my Noah." He sounded like a pint-sized Noah throwing a tantrum. Still, a tiny, shameful flicker of female vanity glowed inside me. But I held firm, laid out the entire proposal under his puppy dog stare, then recited the contract twice while he kept bleating sis, got it? I asked, dead serious. Chin in hand, he nodded without looking away and reached for the pen. I blocked him. "Julian, business is business. Think it through." He grasped my hand, his palm scorching, his gaze hotter. He parroted my key points back to me, word perfect. "Scarlett's plan is excellent, way better than Dorian's. I'm signing because she's brilliant, not because I'm in love with her. Eyes like an unending summer," he added. "I believe in Scarlett's ability because she truly has it." My heart missed a traitorous beat. With Julian's contract signed, I returned to Vance. Dorian looked at me differently now, not a pet in a tantrum, but a rival who could actually bite. Meanwhile, the private investigator I'd hired the day I walked out of the Sterling house delivered what I needed. I spread the photos and videos across my desk. Dorian and a young woman entering upscale baby boutiques, leaving prenatal checkups. In every frame he gazed at her with tender pride, like a blissed-out newlywed. I traced the girl's baby bump with a fingertip. 4 months. I'd just given birth to Noah. While I sobbed over clogged milk ducts in the maternity ward, while incision pain kept me awake, while I stumbled through 3 a.m. feedings alone, my husband, my love, was busy giving another woman her own Noah. The PI slid a tissue toward me. I stared, blank. He offered a pitying smile. "Tears won't help, Vance M. That slime isn't worth them." I swiped my cheeks. Oh. I'd been crying. I dried my face, then pushed the investigator a photo of Brenda. "Find the connection between this girl and the nanny." Ever since the night in the nursery I'd turned it over in my head. Why would Brenda try to smother Noah out of the blue? If she feared exposure as Richard's mistress, killing me made more sense than killing an infant. The moment I saw that swollen belly, the pieces clicked. If a vested interest were at stake, Brenda's motive crystallized. Now I just needed proof. Back at Vance I didn't hesitate. I marched the evidence straight to Dorian. His face blanched when he saw the pictures. "You hired someone to tail me?" The boy I'd loved in college was already dead to me. All that remained was cold hatred. Everything the investigator found, true or not. Dorian's shoulders sagged, he looked wrecked. Scarlett, I'm sorry. Then, softer, I shouldn't have cheated, but I was exhausted. After Noah arrived, you only had eyes for him, you stopped taking care of yourself. I'm a man, I have needs. I only did what every man ends up doing. Once the baby's born, I'll cut it off, I swear. I laughed, one sharp, humorless note. So it's my fault? My crime was getting pregnant? Is Noah only mine, then? He stared as if I were throwing a tantrum. I studied his face. My pregnancy, wasn't it your little scheme? Dorian froze, then spluttered, what are you talking about? I have no idea. I'd had months to connect the dots. We always used protection. How did I accidentally get pregnant, right after we started our jobs and landed the joint project? Dorian's facade cracked, he slumped back in his chair and shrugged. Fine. I poked holes in every condom. My entire body trembled with rage. I couldn't believe I'd ever fallen for such scum. He was still pontificating, waving his virtuous wife and doting mother banner. Sooner or later you were going to give birth to Noah anyway. The second you're on maternity leave, that manager slot could go to anyone. Better it land in my lap than some outsiders. What's the point of a woman knocking herself out? Having Noah early is the only thing that matters. I swallowed the fire in my throat and slid the divorce papers across the table. He tore them in half. I'm not signing, Scarlett. I still love you. I pulled out a second stack, thick as a manuscript, and slapped it on top of the shredded scraps. Dorian, how fast do you think your affair flyers would cover every bulletin board on campus? Or your dad's sex tape with Brenda would crash the family WhatsApp? General isn't a crown you earned, remember? Think carefully before you gamble it away. Dorian signed. The house, the cars, every brick and bolt, were mine before we met, and the law tagged him the guilty party. Under my polite little ultimatum, he walked away with the clothes on his back. The moment the clerk stamped our decree, he grabbed the girl's hand and snarled, Scarlett, I'll make sure you're drummed out of Vance. I smiled. Tell me, Dorian, what's the chairman's last name again? He blinked. Dad's Bentley glided to the curb. The chairman strode straight for me. Hi, Dad, I called, still smiling. Dorian echoed, stunned. Dad? My father flicked him a look of disgust. Don't contaminate that word, you piece of trash. Before we could leave, 2 clerks from the county courthouse stepped forward. Dorian? You've been sued for bigamy. Here's your subpoena, Cameron, don't be late. The blood drained from Dorian and Lila's faces. I felt almost weightless, and this was only the opening act. The next morning Dorian strolled in late. Having been scrubbed from my life, he'd crawled back to his parents' gatehouse. A co-worker who lived nearby said the Sterling's mansion had echoed with screams all night, something about father and son cheating with mother and daughter, the younger one already showing. Someone had even airdropped the elder's bedroom footage straight to Eleanor's phone. Word was Richard and Eleanor were lawyering up themselves. The open-plan floor hummed with pitying glances thrown my way. I smiled again. Dorian burst through the glass doors, sleepless nights etched in every wrinkle of his cheap suit, hair overgrown, eyes bloodshot. He slammed his palm on my desk. Scarlett. You promised you'd. Wasn't Scarlett, Julian sang, strolling in with 2 lattes. I hit send. A masterpiece that good deserves a wider audience, don't you think, Avery? He handed me my cup. Double sugar, just like you like it, Scarlett. I patted his golden retriever head while Dorian sputtered like a broken lawnmower. Before he could finish, HR appeared. Mr. Sterling, your personal conduct has materially damaged company reputation. Add chronic dereliction of duty and we're terminating your employment contract, effective immediately, Dorian roared. On whose authority? He spun toward me. Scarlett, this is you. I lifted both palms. Does it matter? The paperwork is legal, airtight, and already filed. You forfeit every severance dollar. Your HR file will note terminated for cause, soon joined by inmate, state penitentiary. I stood, ice in my veins. Dorian, let me be perfectly clear, you are finished. His life imploded, yet I still tasted ash. After the judge gavelled him 2 years, I visited Eleanor. She had always been civil, nothing like the monster mother archetype. Now her elegant face looked a decade older, hair ash gray. She wept apologies the instant I sat. I breathed once, slow. I'd been the one to tell her Brenda and Lila were mother and daughter, that the pair had serviced father and son under the same roof. Brenda, hungry to secure Vance's inheritance for her unborn grandchild, had tried to smother my Noah. I couldn't prove the pillow incident, but I could prove plenty else. I handed Eleanor a folder, hospital forms where Richard signed Brenda in as spouse, joint utility bills, vacation photos, all adulterous breadcrumbs. Old tricks still worked. Eleanor stared at the stack, then closed the file with steady fingers. Weeks later, Richard and Brenda stood before the same judge, 2 years each for bigamy, plus a divorce decree awarding Eleanor 80% of their conjugal assets. With every protector behind bars, Lila panicked. She scheduled an abortion and mailed me the clinic receipt. I smiled at the PDF. Had she stayed pregnant, a sympathetic court might have suspended any sentence I pushed for. Instead, I never filed charges against her. I simply removed the safety net. Once the procedure was logged and the litigation window still open, my attorneys lodged the final suits. Alone, penniless, and terrified of single motherhood, Lila terminated, exactly when the calendar would let us crucify her in court. The last chess piece clicked into place. 3 years rolled by. I stood at the lectern in the shareholders' ballroom. Quarter after quarter my performance metrics had topped the boards. I'd reeled in 3 Fortune 100 clients and stitched a strategic alliance with U Holdings. When the motion came to appoint a new general, the vote was a formality. Then Dad stepped up to the microphone. "My friends, allow me to introduce your new CEO, my daughter, Scarlett." Applause detonated. No whispers of nepotism, only the old adage, like father, like daughter. Dad's grin threatened to slice off the top of the ballroom ceiling. Session adjourned. In the corridor Julian waited, Noah balanced on his hip. 2 pairs of starbright eyes locked on me. "Scarlett, Mommy." I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in years. Julian's gaze was still the warm lighthouse I remembered from college. "Julian," I said on impulse, "I'm carving out 3% of my equity to found a women's fund, tuition for girls, job programs, even maternity stipends and legal aid." He tilted his head. "A foundation?" Pallid stardust. Pink crept across his cheeks. "Why stardust?" I brushed a thumb over the glimmer in his eyes. "Because if no one hands us a light, we can still burn as our own stars." Thanks for listening to today's story. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate it? If you enjoyed the video, give us a thumbs up and share it with friends. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more gripping tales. See you next time.